Yeah, sure, I'll do that. So, good evening, everyone. I would like to extend a warm welcome to everybody present here for the event today, which is basically a webinar on coaching for young leaders and entrepreneurs for social change. So, today is going to be an introductory session for life skill and professional training program, which will be conducted by Daniel in the upcoming weeks. So, I hope everybody is doing fine. And yes, good morning to Yasmin and welcome, Daniel. So before diving right in, I would like to give a short introduction about the organization. So Foundation for Equal Citizenship came into existence in December 2015, and it is even our privilege to have the founder, Ms. Yasmin, among us right now. We are mainly working with the people staying in the Ambedkar camp in Trilokpuri area in New Delhi. The main strength of the organization lies in supporting small grassroots organizations, empowering local youth to take the ownership and create their own businesses. We empower marginalized communities through partnership, social design, technology, and innovation. We believe in taking an holistic approach for overall development and empowerment. Instead of specializing in one area, such as education, health, livelihood, resource management, or skill development, our approach is to prioritize interventions on a need and impact basis by first working with the community, engaging with the people, then partnering with nonprofit organizations or universities or corporations that have the expertise and work in collaboration with them and the community. So far, we have impacted the lives of 500 plus families with the support of 40 plus volunteers. I would now request Simeen to share the screen and let us go through the website, and maybe we can just see some of our work. And the participants can also check our work on other social media handles. We are on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. So yeah, this is our website where you will find us all the interventions and the work which we have done so far. Like last year have been really engaging. We have worked, we have even engaged with the children of the community, provided them basic reading and learning sessions with them. We organized sessions with women on nutrition. And yes, we have supported a lot of people here. And we also have some of the testimonials of the lives we have impacted and the people of the community.
Cool.
You can see other programs we are working and running right now. Yeah. So this is about the area we are working in, which is basically Trilokpuri. And here are some of the videos and testimonials of the work we did. So this is the page of the handmade products we have collaborated with Simeen's organization, and we are trying to raise funds through it. And it is also the contribution and the designs being made by the children of the community. So you can check this page out. Now I would like to request everybody, if you believe in our vision and the work we do, it would be really great if you support our work. So yeah, thank you, Simeen, for showing this. Now I would like to request Yasmin to give an introduction about Daniel.
Thanks, Chanchal, and thanks, Simeen, for sharing the website. So I'm really excited about introducing Daniel finally to FFEC and to people who have joined, who are interested in taking some coaching or learning about coaching, and knowing how to kind of balance their life, professional goals, and at the same time doing something that has an impact on society. So I've known Daniel now for about 6 years, I think, and I first met Daniel in Dubai. I just happened to meet Daniel, really, and I'm glad we did. And we kind of clicked. And at that time, I was, having some ideas about joining a design thinking firm, actually becoming a partner with a firm in Denmark. And that didn't finally happen, but Daniel and I stayed in touch. And then Daniel was working at that time with a center, I don't know, something in the business school at Sharjah University. He can tell more about it, but basically he was kind of coaching, I think, young entrepreneurs, helping with their startup ecosystem. And we actually ended up doing one project, which it could have, I wish that it had, we could have done more, but nevertheless, we did one project with some students over there, something on scarves, circle of scarves, pashmina products. And then Daniel moved on, I think, to other work. He moved from Sharjah to Germany. That's where, he's from. And the thing about Daniel that's very interesting is that he's always doing something new. So I met him, some years ago, and he'd started this podcast series on chapters of my life. And he just, happened to also ask me if I would be interested in talking about my life. And we did one podcast. So that was something different that I found out about Daniel. He's also been, I think, involved in TED Talks before he moved to Sharjah. Maybe he still is, I don't know. So he's a very creative person. And I felt that after knowing some of you, who worked with FFEC, that it would really benefit to have Daniel at least give a webinar and an introduction about himself, what he can offer. And I thought it can really actually benefit young people who have a lot of ideas, who are just stepping into this professional world and want to be able to balance, between the professional goals, personal goals, and who are really doing a lot. I feel like some of them are just working so many hours, whether it's their own, university work or their interests or something political, whatever it is. And so they need to kind of have a way to balance all of this so that you can be productive for a longer time. Otherwise, there's always that fear of getting burnt out, of having to deal with anxiety and stuff like that, which, given today's world that we live in, is something that a lot of people go through. And so that's why I've been talking to Daniel for a while about having something to kind of partner with FFEC. And so this is a great start. And I hope that it can lead to more projects. And Daniel will talk about some of the ideas that he has, as a follow-up to today's session. And so with that, I'll let Daniel take over. Welcome, Daniel, and welcome all of you who joined today, and hope you all benefit from this.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Yasmin. It's a pleasure being here. As Yasmin mentioned, I know FFEC already for over 6 years now, since Yasmin mentioned it to me, and I always wanted to go there to India. Never really worked out. Then Corona stepped in, and now I, have found the opportunity to also share with you a little bit my work as well, and to help maybe some of you as well, young entrepreneurs, regarding coaching. So let me start first by sharing the screen and also give you a quick overview from my side, and then walk you through a little bit about the topic, like the coaching topic, why it's so beneficial, not just for yourself on the professional side, but also on the personal side, and also to understand what is coaching. And I will do that together with some case studies, which I will show you as well. So I would need to share the screen. I just got a message, host disabled participant screen sharing. There we are, perfect. Now I can share. Great. So, all right, you should see part of the screen already, and now you should be able to see the whole screen. Perfect. All right, so let me walk you through a little bit of the power of coaching, and also, as I mentioned before, to tell you a little more what is actually coaching really. So I walk you through first through a question. So the very first question I have to you is, what was your last book you read? So if you can just write in the chat, what was your last book you read? Just gonna open the chat in the side. So just a question to everyone, what was your last book you read? The Design of Everyday Things. Okay, thanks, Simon. The Design of Everyday Things, that's very interesting. The Secret, oh, okay. What else? Life and Death of Safdar Hosni, 1984, George Orwell, The Indian Ideology. Ah, interesting. So we got biography, history, was a design of everyday things. So the reason why I'm asking you this is because whenever we're picking up a book, we seem to be interested in the content, obviously, but also to learn more about the topic, but also more learn for ourselves. And when we're picking up a book, it tells us a little bit more about us. You know, what are we interested in? Are we interested in the very details? Are we interested in a personality? And perhaps also it might need information where we are right now with work or study. So that's a very important topic. And the reason why I'm asking you this right now is because the coaching, which I will share with you in a minute, is related about books. So I'll walk you through very quickly like the last 2 years from the journey till today, so you have a better overview actually where I'm coming from. So I used to live in London for 5 years, from 2010 to 2015. And then I moved over to Berlin. And that time between London and Berlin, I was very interested in social entrepreneurship. So something like SDGs. The idea behind was really how can we come up with projects who can make a social impact? Really covering everything on SDGs. I had at that time a social enterprise, a small startup as well. But at the same time, I was very interested in how can we actually build a team? How can we inspire other people, other young people to make a change as well? And locally or internationally. So my journey went from London to Berlin, where I stayed for 1 year, where I was working also in the marketing field, and then shortly after to Dubai. And in Dubai was also the time where I met Yasmin in 2016, and I stayed in Dubai till 2018. And at that time, I was working in American University of Sharjah in a field as a trainer and coach for young startups, startup founders. And at that time, I was more and more also involved in some work outside of UAE, so in the Middle East. So I got more involved in Gaza Strip, supporting some social enterprises there as well, and in Lebanon as well, which actually I attended since 2013 because there's a marathon as well in Lebanon. So my work is kind of focused more, not just in the UK, but also in the Middle East, to really finding ways how to support young people to make a social change. No matter what SDG, Sustainable Development Goal is. And the reason why I add here the book is because the best way where we can make a change is first telling a story. And when we know our own story, where we're coming from, we better know where we want to go in the future. So writing our next development chapter. And this is very important for young entrepreneurs who might be stuck and don't know where to go professionally or personally. If you're able to write your own book, your own autobiography, you have more clarity and you move forward. And I will explain you a little bit more about what that is actually when we talk about coaching. So on the left side, if I were to write a book about myself, I would have to give the title Never Giving Up. There's like kind of 6 chapters. One starting line, jumping over hurdles in my youth, falling down when I was in the early 20s, for some hardships privately, but also chapter 4 would be about exploring the world. So really traveling the world and seeing what can be changed and how to inspire others. And chapter 5 would be about foundation, like how can I build a foundation so other people are inspired. And chapter 6 would be large mindset. So how can we, expand that knowledge to other regions as well. And coaching is a very important aspect, which I want to show you what it is in a minute. So today I want to show you some case studies as well. So apart from coaching, what I've done with some social enterprises, social startups, and founders, I want to give you 2 case studies as well. Both are coming from Dubai. Very successful case studies related to SDGs. Some projects were worked in Africa and some were working in the Middle East. And these are the case studies I will show you as well. I'll go more in details in a second, but first I want to actually tell you what is actually coaching. So when we're using the word coaching, it's usually mixed up in a lot of different cultures and regions. So coaching is often mixed with the word training, with mentoring, but it's actually a clear differentiation. When we ask in the International Coaching Federation, ICF, one of the biggest organizations who supports professional coaching, it's about partnering with a client in thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. So kind of complicated sentence, but in a nutshell, it's actually helping the other person to find the answer by themselves. And this is a clear differentiation between mentoring and training. So coaching is asking questions because the other coachee has the answers already, whereas mentoring and training is telling them what to do. And the big advantage compared to mentoring and training as coaching is it's much more sustainable. When you help someone to understand their real problem, the root problem, they have this aha moment. And the solution can be then developed together, and it's so much more sustainable for the long run. And this is the reason why I focus more and more my work in the last 2 years, both parallel to training, but also on coaching. And coaching can be done in one-on-one meetings, where you just unblock some, barriers you have. Maybe you're stuck in certain areas in entrepreneurship, you don't know how to move forward, but also perhaps in a group session. And often in some surveys, in ICF research surveys, they often say, through professional coaching, you can improve your performance over 30%, you become 3 times more productive, but you also improve your work-life balance because you're actually focusing on the individual person. And this is the power of coaching. So when we also talk about coaching, we're also using it with a lot of associated words. So we're talking about partnership, growth, future, goals, empathy, listening, results, transformation, awareness. So all these words have something in common with coaching. When we're talking about professional coaching, it can be leadership coaching, it can be goal-oriented coaching, it can be partnership coaching, but they have all one in common, they have a transformation in common. So you're shifting your mindset from kind of an area where you're stuck, you don't know how to move forward, to a place where you feel much more energetic, you have much more energy and much more clarity. And this is a very powerful way when it comes to coaching. So I want to share this slide here as well for you to also kind of to understand what is coaching in a practice. So here you see concealing, mentoring, consulting, and coaching. So mentoring is obviously you're sharing your experience. My experience is, this is how I would do it. So you're sharing, how you would do it. You give more guidance and advice. Consulting is more like, I'm an expert. This is what you are paying me to tell you. Or you're kind of giving a direction and method. But coaching is really much more sustainable because you ask more the question, how can I support your learning? How can I help you finding what is actually stopping you of moving forward? Or questions, what have you tried? What else is possible? So you empower other people because everyone is different and everyone kind of needs different solutions. So mentoring on one side is useful, obviously, to learn from all the experience, but it might be not so beneficial for everyone because everyone comes from a different is working in a different environment, has different backgrounds as well. So coaching is a very powerful way to explore, to experiment, but also to learn new ways of working, thinking, and being. both personally and professionally. And this is a very, very powerful technique as well. We touch base personal and professional elements for coaching. So I want to give you a quick story behind. Yasmin mentioned it about that chapter of my life podcast, but that kind of lead me till today to that coaching, and I call it also autobiography coaching, which I will show you later in more details as well. So the autobiography coaching is kind of a result from what started kind of 5 years ago actually. I started my first podcast in 2017, where I kind of was very curious of knowing from other people who I know, colleagues, or also other people, maybe, work colleagues, what would be their autobiography? So in other words, how would the past life chapters look like, and what would be the next life chapter? So I asked them the question, how would be your autobiography look like? And the very interesting aspect that was that no one really thought about looking back and get more clarity, connecting the dots, so they know what is the next life chapter. Usually we are stuck in professional side or in personal side. We don't know how to move forward, but we get more clarity when we look back and connecting the dots. So in 2018-19, I kind of added also some other personalities to the podcast, some professional athletes as well, some not so famous people. So it was really a mix. But I noticed then around 2020, so literally 2 years ago, that concept of that podcast, it was more about the statement that every story is here to be shared, to learn from others and vice versa. So I transformed that into kind of a coaching format as well, which I call now autobiography coaching, and focusing on leadership and personal development to help also young entrepreneurs, young students to get more clarity about their next development chapter. So literally they're creating their own book, their book title, their chapters from the past, and also defining in that coaching step by step what will be the next chapters, and working step by step towards it. So the methodology was very simple, actually. I said, okay, where are we right now? But in order to know how to go to the future, we need to look back first, kind of a reflecting and learning phase. And in that coaching, we go back and identify what are the learnings from the past? What have you learned? And take that towards back to the present moment to move it forward to the future. So literally using the learnings and learn from it and take the clear next goal for the future, the personal development plan. And this was actually the coaching format, which I then started to use, not just in the podcast, but also in other one-on-one sessions now with other coaches. So that framework was kind of very universal. It was for business entrepreneurs, families, peak performance, people, for athletes who have relationship issues, health issues. But as we are right now here also is usually focused on young entrepreneurs, because young entrepreneurs have a lot of the vision and the goal, especially when we talk about social entrepreneurship. But often they are stuck of not knowing how can they make the biggest impact. And by creating kind of an autobiography book, they kind of better understand what are they passionate about, how can they move forward, and where can they make the most impact in a shorter time period. And this was very clear that I focus on this a little bit more. And that's the reason why I reached out to Yasmin to say we need to offer that also to some young entrepreneurs as well, or entrepreneurs in general as well, about business leaders as well. So when we talk about coaching, we have to also understand what are the steps towards understanding what's your next chapter. So it starts with the self-awareness. You cannot change something in your life when you're not self-aware. You're getting a bigger picture of where you are right now. Next step is really connecting the dots. So when you're looking back in the past, you kind of know why you have done what you have done. And you're kind of connecting the dots. Sometimes it's not clear, but later on, some decisions are getting more clear. And obviously, next step is to understand what are your values and beliefs, what you're standing for. So you have clear goals which align with your values and beliefs. The next one is the decision making. We set always our goals, which is always great, but we're not making decisions of really making it happen. So we have to learn to prioritize as well, and changing our mindset. And we do this by building new habits. So building new habits starts when we actually unlearn old habits. So unlearning old habits starts before we're building new habits. And this is then the leading factor to build your next chapter. And all these steps are kind of part in this coaching as well. And we're looking from the self-awareness, connecting dots towards goal setting, decision making, building new habits, creating next chapters, and your personal next chapter. So this was just an overview when I did some other sessions with other participants as well. Obviously, when you do that autobiography coaching or professional coaching, you improve the productivity, you improve even self-confidence by 80% because you have this more awareness and clarity. But also when we talk about a company setup, employees are less likely to leave because they get more clarity why they are there and getting a better purpose in their work. And obviously that's also very important when it comes to self-development, but also employee development in an organization for new team members. So I want to give you a quick overview from like some statements, and I prepared something here which I wanted to show you, and I hope you can hear the sound. So throughout like the last 3 years for the coaching as well on the podcast format, I had very interesting feedbacks as well. And let me just stop sharing quickly and reshare, and you can see that as well. There we are. So let me share with you 3 statements, which was very powerful. I hope you can hear the sound. Just let me know if you can't hear the sound. Oops, that was too quick.
Follow your passions, and this isn't some whimsical concept. Follow your passion, double down on your strengths, find out what really drives you, and move into that space, because you can always find, whatever it might be, you can always find success if you're good and you're fully engaged in whatever industry and whatever space you end up going into.
This was, for example, an interview I did with Tom Otten in Dubai. And throughout the kind of interview during the podcast, it got clear that he was a clear, passionate advocate regarding coaching. And he had the statement, follow your passion, double down on your strengths, find out what really drives you and move into that space. That was a statement out of the coaching. So the coaching kind of empowered him to say this powerful sentence, which is a very powerful way to express. Another example I will show you now was from Linda McLaughlin. She's one of the vice president of the ICF. So let me play you this one.
Trying new things, been open to possibility, saying yes when opportunities knock at my door.
So this was a very powerful statement through that interviews where I with Linda, because she said something, don't over worry, just try to use every opportunity which knock on your door and say more yes. Obviously learn also to understand what are your values, not jump into everything, but see opportunities as an opportunity to go for the next step. And another one, which I want to share with you out of a podcast interview, was this one.
When you have a voice and you know that your voice can be heard, you must treat that voice with respect, which means you must take the responsibility of being the voice of those who don't, of saying the stuff that needs to be said, of speaking the truth, of being as authentic as you can be in this world. So these are important lessons that I really want them to take away.
So this was another voice example from Malavika Bharatan. I interviewed her like 3 years ago, also in this coaching format, autobiography coaching format on the podcast. But she said something very interesting, is that in order, when you have a specific purpose, when it comes to, for example, entrepreneurship, you have to raise your voice, but also listen to that voice and move forward. So don't overthink in this direction. And the reason why I showed you this kind of 3 examples was because when we do the coaching, what I usually do in the one-on-one sessions as well, it empowers people to say these statements. And you get much more clarity, much more focused as well. And throughout that coaching, actually, or the podcast with them, they get more clarity as well. And this is kind of the autobiography coaching format, which I wanted to show you. So from these, I want to give you kind of another question. So, we, based on what Alavika said, we all have a voice, we all have a story worth sharing. But I want to understand from you now, from the audience, what do you want to include for your next life chapter? So if you imagine now, we do the coaching, for example, and you kind of want to achieve something in short term. Let's say you want to achieve something in 2022, and you have the chance to write your next life chapter. Literally write in the book your next chapter. What would you like to include? What goals would you like to include in that chapter? Can be just a word, can be a short sentence. What would you like? What are your goals for 2022, which you would like to write in the next life chapter? Just feel free, write in the chat, whatever comes to your mind. If it's launching a startup idea as a project, a website, what do you want to include for your next life chapter? Courage. Okay, that's a buzzword. That's good. Yeah, usually when we're thinking about self-growth, a successful store business. Okay, there we go. Self-growth. So successful store business. So successful store business is a more tangible goal as well. And usually when we're using the word successful, it's always a definition. What is successful for us? And when, for example, thanks, Simon, I hope I pronounce it correctly, Simin, when we're writing something like this in the next, in the coaching, in the next life chapter, then we need to understand what is success for us. How can we actually really be successful? And how can we take the next steps? So clarity to know what is the next life chapter or in your next kind of 2022 life chapter. It starts with understanding where you're coming from and what you want to achieve. So I see here also ideate and work on my social venture. So this is perfect. So this is your goal for the next life chapter. And in the coaching, which I do then with people in the one-on-one, you would more identify that one-on-one. Like, what is it really? What is it that? What does it mean, ideate and work on my social venture? What is such social venture? What are the goals? So that you are actually, by the end of 2022, you're looking back and say, wow, this is actually the book I wrote. And these are the achievements which I wrote or which I achieved. And this is a very, very powerful concept to do that. So you cannot move forward when you don't know where we want to go. And this is the reason why I'm asking this question. Where do you want to go by the end of 2022? And when you know that, step by step through the coaching, you can go backwards and create the next steps forward. So with all this asked, when we're talking about autobiography and kind of your own book, it's very important to think of like, what is the title of your autobiography? Like how many book sections? What can the reader see on the book cover? What is your first life, second, third chapter? And what's your next life chapter? This was one of the questions as well. Or the copyright section, what would you recommend the readers not to copy from your life? So this kind of, this autobiography book format, which is then kind of a coaching format, helps you to get more clarity and really see that a book can actually, kind of an audiobook can actually give you clarity and move forward. So I want to walk you through some case studies, which I mentioned before which are very interesting. I picked up some from social entrepreneurship, which I highlighted also in the past. I supported them through trainings and coaching. And I want to walk you through what they went through so you can better relate to that as well. So one case study was Ulite. Ulite was one young student team in Dubai, in the American University of Sharjah, who around 2018, as students came up with the idea to, as a mobile power bank, kind of a mobile power bank where you can generate through manual hand power. And the goal was not just to come up with that project, that you can create electricity, maybe through that power you can generate, or maybe you can charge the battery, but also not think, where can you use that project for other parts in the world? So they came up with the idea to say, we produce that. 1 minute can generate 25 minutes of light, 4% of charge, has a USB output, but provide that to other regions in the world, maybe to in Africa, specifically they picked Nigeria, because in some rural countries, in the countryside and villages, they don't have lights, they don't have power. They might not even have solar power. And kerosene, which is an alternative way to generate light, is also dangerous. So they had a clear focus. Nigeria. So they kind of connected the idea, applied for the, if you know, the HALT prize. It's kind of a global university entrepreneurship competition from the UN, organized from the UN. And they actually reached the final in New York. And the reason why I'm showing you this, and I walk you through quickly for the idea, is when you have an idea, when you have a dream, just work on it step by step. And building a team around you, because the team around you inspires you as well. It can be a coaching team, someone who inspires you for coaching, but it can be obviously also your own personal team, you know, who gives you new ideas of what you can change or not. So ULIGHT, give you an example, was really a simple, affordable, reliable kind of device with a clear focus. A clear focus was to support young families or students in Nigeria. And they understood that by, you know, going down there and interviewing some people. And obviously, you know, giving some people just this device, it does not really harm. They wanted to know who could best benefit from it. So they noticed that many families maybe will not have lights in the evening, lost a lot of productivity. Also, lots of students dropped down because they not had light to work at home in the evening. They might not have electricity for a mobile phone to charge. So there was clear a problem as well. And obviously kerosene created some health risks. So that was a clear problem. And the solution was really to come up with that device, to provide it to them so they can generate light independent from the weather, independent from kerosene, just through their hand power. And obviously, mobile phone became more and more important in the last 10 years also this time. And when just going back, you see here also first project in line. So they had over 40 prototypes just to come up with that. And I'm saying you this because often in the very beginning, it seems impossible, but it takes time to really come up with a good idea, and testing and learning and growing. And this is an outcome from that team as well. They learned so much in just 40 prototypes. So here, just an example, the problem was really that 1.2 billion people live off the electricity grid as well. In Nigeria, just 95 million. That's 55% of the population. And they said, this is a perfect target location for providing that device. So they noticed that, you know, it's 24% more reliable than solar because it's 87 days rain on average, and it does rain there. And it's 91% cheaper than kerosene as well. And it's actually also, the impact is also very easy. One ULIGHT box sold kind of in average empowered 3 children, because in average they had 3 children in their family. It increased the income twice, because through research afterwards, they noticed that families had light in the evening, could charge their phone and could also use electricity for other devices, could become more productive, and in the end also create kind of a safer household. Because in rural countries in Nigeria, light is actually safety, and safety was the #1 for families as well. So they kind of mixed 3 dots in one. This is just a quick overview from a market plan, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, just to show you that in order to build something, it takes some strategy. But what we did at that time is we did a lot of one-on-one coaching as well with the teams. So really help them to understand what needs to be done first in phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And this was what coaching was about. Let's walk you through here quickly. They had also expanding scale ideas, you know, scaling up, not just in Nigeria. They wanted to expand in different regions in Africa as well. To 2026, even they had ideas to expand there, over 5 countries. And the reason why I show you this is because the team started to learn. And this was a very important sentence from Charles Darwin. Probably you know one of him, he was very famous in biology. He says, it's not the strongest of species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. And this is a very important message when it comes to coaching young entrepreneurs or even entrepreneurs or business people. It's not about the strongest, it's not about the most intelligent, it's the one who respond the fastest. And we could see that also in Corona times, obviously, who could respond faster to change. And this is important when we're talking about entrepreneurship as well, or social entrepreneurship, how to respond quick to change. Another case study I want to show you quickly was the concept. So the concept was kind of a team of 3 people here. And they had a great idea of, if you know, when you're flying or, you know, in an airplane, you have usually the food on that board. And they wanted to make it much more, economic, friendly user, less, heavy. So what we did is we had the team, we had them from the business side, but also on the personal one-on-one coaching. And they won also the Enterprise Agility Award, 2018 as an example, Entrepreneur of the Year. And they came up with kind of a digital app, but also kind of that board where, you know, you usually get served the food, but the goal for that was that it's not just made out of plastic, it's actually 100% recyclable, 80% less heavy, and it's much more sustainable, and it's much more user-friendly. And even so, that was just kind of an idea from the concept. They call it Neos Fly Plus. The success story out of this is through personal learning and through personal coaching, one-on-one, both on the business mentoring and one-on-one coaching. They now actually could provide that app and that device in major airlines as well around the world in the business line. So this was a successful as well. From Emirates, for example, Emirates bought their startup as well, or the idea, and used that in their business context. So SDGs in that case was kind of covered because it was more environmental friendly. So ideas come out of the blue, but the idea was really to improve the in-flight food try experience. Another quote, which I always want to share with everyone, was like, it always seems impossible until it's done. And that's from Nelson Mandela. And, you know, when we stuck in certain areas in entrepreneurship and whatever you want to achieve, it always seems impossible, but until it's done. So coaching, as an example, can help you to see the light in the end of the tunnel. And I'll just skip here. And another case study I want to show you is Bluefin. Bluefin was a very young startup, kind of founded in 2018, and only 2 founders. They had the idea of making the ocean much cleaner. And you probably know there are some devices who, you know, like robots who go for the ocean and clean the ocean. But the idea was to make automatic robot who identifying what plastic is in the ocean and catch it automatically. So they came up with that device called Bluefin. And what we did is actually, because they were young students as well, we helped them not just on the business side, but we also helped them on the coaching side. So helping them to understand, what does it take to be a leader as well? What does it take to build a team? What does it take to support your team? Because it's not just you, it's also the team around where you as a founder should look after. So we kind of supported them, and the whole team got in the media as well, became Entrepreneurs of the Year in Dubai. They also won a pitch competition over 100,000 dirhams. And long story short, with the first prototype in Dubai, they now came up with a new modular prototype, number 2, which was 30% more cost effective, 70% more efficient in waste collection, and 90% more prevents of waste from the ending up in the ocean. So the goal was not just to come with a robot, but to further improve and to learn. And we did this for personal coaching, but also for personal mentoring, to always encourage them. How can you improve further? How can you make it more efficiently? And the new prototype, for example, is even more compactor, it's much more efficient, can be used not just obviously in in front of Dubai in the water, but in a lot of different regions in the world, in form of harbor, for example, to make the ocean much more cleaner. So this is, for example, another example, further details from that prototype. Literally version 2 of the modular aqua drone, how they call it, was 30% and 70% more efficient. And this was through the feedback channel that they used as well. So continuous feedback, continuous learning. So when it comes to coaching, and I want to go back a little bit to the coaching topic, when it comes to coaching, especially when it comes to leadership coaching or entrepreneurship coaching in this way, the question is, what can we learn from others as well? And it's usually about determination, it's reflection, passion, self-awareness, inner belief, vision, the belief of never giving up, or the self-worth. And this is what I noticed with the podcast, but also now for that coaching, which I transferred. And for over 4,000 minutes of podcast and the coaching sessions as well, I noticed that when young entrepreneurs have a goal but are kind of stuck, the reason behind is perhaps another root problem, maybe a lack of self-worth, or maybe a lack of vision, a lack of inner belief, maybe a lack of self-awareness, passion, or a lack of reflection, not knowing where you're coming from. And if you remember from the beginning, that kind of 6 steps, that was the goal in the coaching, or what helping others as well to get more clarity, to know where you want to go to, and transform that into a book. Because writing the book, or literally having an imaginary book, it's about getting clarity. And you can always see that as a understanding, what is your next development chapter? What's your next life chapter? So so this was quickly an overview from that autobiography coaching, or also kind of the power of coaching. What is coaching under the ICF standard, and how can it help you both as a young entrepreneur, but also get more work-life balance ideas, soft skills, but also improving your creating your next life chapter. So that was on my side quickly, and I'm very happy to hear if you have any questions, if you have specific questions of how could that look like for you in the next step, how that next coaching session could look like. What I usually do is I do one-on-one sessions with everyone first to better understand where is actually the root problem, and then taking from there, working towards your autobiography book, where we then together also create your next development chapter. And the next development chapter could be building your next startup, getting more self-confident in a business environment, or improving your management skills. Could be many more. So this was on my side very quickly. Any questions, or Yasmin, if you want to take over, feel free. Just let me know.
Thanks, Daniel. I think that was great. So this is the first time I'm actually attending one of your sessions as well. So I'm very glad that I did. I could kind of reflect on some of what you presented, and things. I mean, I have been working for a very long time, and yet I feel I really need some coaching. And as Daniel had mentioned, these days, most of the corporations are actually providing coaching, right, for their executive management. It's considered that important. And so that kind of like, where you had that, that table where you're telling people what the difference between coaching and mentoring, etc., is. I could really kind of like relate to that, because I've been through all of them, the 3 that you had over there. So I think this is a good opportunity for all of you to ask Daniel any questions that you may have. Anything really. Is any feedback also on the session? Is that what you expected? What you're looking forward to? Whatever you want to ask, feel free to like either raise your hand or type in the chat or whatever you feel comfortable with. But I really would encourage people to have at least some questions for Daniel, so that, you know, it doesn't look like a monologue. He's like presented, he's done, and we end the session, right? So anyone who wants to kind of go first? Yes, no, no one?
If you have any question, feel free to share. I mean, for me, it's very important, you know, because everyone has kind of a goal as well, or kind of ambition. I see the question, how to work on vision for long run. That's an interesting aspect. The question is, when we're working on a vision for a long run, the question is, what is a long run for you? For some, it's a 1 month is a long run. For some, it's a 1 year, or 10 years a long run. I think it comes down to kind of better understand what is the timeline, how do we define long run, and what is a short run, to use that same terminology. So to grow business, yes. So the grow business, I think, just adding in what you just wrote in the chat, is understanding what is also your KPIs. So when I'm talking about the business, on the business side, is obviously understanding what are your achievable, measurable goals in a short run, and then working step by step to the long run. So this is, for example, something what we could do in a one-on-one session, to have first a proper roadmap creation. So we try to create kind of a roadmap, also for that professional coaching, so that you have more clarity where you want to go, and then understand, where you want to go in a short run and long run. Growing business, always the question also, what do you want to grow? Number of customers, revenue, and this is something what we then identify in the coaching.
Anyone else? Nobody?
How I decided to become a coach. That's a very interesting question, actually. Thanks for asking that. So, I mean, over the last years, as I mentioned to you, when I go back to that, when you remember that the map, I worked with as a social entrepreneur, and I had this kind of team. I found more and more interest, not just to build a business, but to empower other young entrepreneurs to better understand how to build a work environment. And around 8 years ago, I noticed that, everyone was very busy. You have to be very busy on building a startup. You have to run, you have to hustle. Usually you heard the word hustle, and you have to do it, but actually you don't know what you're doing. You're just running from A to B and B to C, and everyone says you have to do this, you have to do social media, you have to do this, but you don't know why. And that brought me around 5-6 years ago to the question, like, how can we actually help an entrepreneur not just to follow everyone, but to first to understand where you want to go rather than following everyone. And then around 5-6 years ago, I also met Linda McLaughlin, which you saw in one of the videos. She was one of the coaches as well, who coached my team and me as well in the American University of Sharjah. And she introduced me to coaching. And at that time, I was very interested in coaching, but had very little understanding, like, what is professional coaching? Because everyone says I'm a coach, but I don't want to just say I'm a coach without having any certification or not knowing what are the professional tools of coaching. So I decided then to do that coaching training under the ICF, and then additionally also another certification, the ACC level, where I'm now able to really support an individual or an entrepreneur on their journey, because I can see coaching is really sustainable. You help someone to find their own answer, and that makes or helps that other person much more efficient way, both in the entrepreneurship setup, but also on a personal setup. Yeah. I've been into some startups, but couldn't achieve what I wanted. But your president cleared me many aspects I've been lacking. Thanks for insight. Yeah, I mean, I'm reading a lot of keywords out there. You couldn't achieve, but also lack of clarity was in the past, but now it's more clear. I think clarity is really the most important aspect, especially when it comes to when it comes to startups. Like, where do you want to go? And don't be discouraged by the fact that others did exactly the same. It's actually a good sign. And for all the startups I trained, or mentored, or even coached, they're always scared, oh my God, others have done exactly the same, so it's not a new idea. This is actually not right. You should not be scared that others did the same, because when others worked on a similar idea, it's actually a good sign. Why? It's because there is a market for that. And to be very honest, no idea is similar. Every idea is kind of different. And when you start with an idea, the idea will look completely different in 6 months. As more you're working on that business idea and startup idea, as more you get coaching as well, or self-reflection exercises. And it comes down not just to build something in startup, but to understand what is really touching you, what is your really passion. And this is, for example, what I do with some other entrepreneurs as well, to first identify what is their real passion. Not just what they think, but also what is really touching them. Because as an entrepreneur, you need to have a passion and you have to have the resilience to keep going for several years and not to give up halfway through. And this is what coaching, for example, can help you. Are there any things, preparation, you would suggest to those of us who are willing to have one-on-one coaching sessions with you? So I spoke with that with Yasmin before. I mean, for the one-on-one coaching session, obviously that will be then handled, or Yasmin will share that, who is interested can then fill out the registration form. But in terms of preparation, I think when it comes to preparation, it's before a coaching session. The very first question is actually to understand, or maybe we're keeping that autobiography coaching aspect, is understand where do you want to, where are you coming from? So what have you achieved already in the last years? And just write it down on a paper. And then on another paper, you're writing down what do you want to achieve for this year? And then you kind of compare both. And just whatever comes to your mind, that already helps. And that can be a great preparation before the coaching session. Yeah. There's one more question. Let me know, Yasmin, if I run over time now.
No, I think it's okay. Because it's a small group. What time is it? Maybe we can go on for another 10 minutes, if that's okay with people.
Yes, that's fine with me. So it will be limited to how many sessions. So how it usually works is I have a very first one-on-one session. It's around one hour. With everyone, can be also sometimes 1.5 hours, where we just reflect on the past. So really, and I just go back on the slide. In that very first session, I'm going first into the reflection phase. So helping you to understand what have you achieved already. That was step 1. And then taking the next step, number 2, towards the present moment. So this is really the first meeting. And then in the following meetings, the meetings can be then bi-weekly, for example, bi-weekly, each 1 hour, for example, we're working step by step. Number 3, towards the future. So next, your development chapter, your next phase. But all, obviously for the coaching, but parallel, we're kind of creating also this kind of autobiography where we summarize everything. So everything what we discussed from the past till the present, we summarize it and capture that into kind of that imaginary book, like understanding what would be your chapter, what would be your title. And then the same also for step 3, where we then have bi-weekly sessions. You write it down into what is your next life chapter. Writing down the title, what could be the content, and also depends on that future desired goal, writing down KPIs. If it's entrepreneurship related, if it's a personal, if it's a work-life balance, if it's focusing on reducing stress, that all depends on that. So first 1 hour or 90-minute session, and then followed by bi-weekly sessions as well. Yeah, and then the second question, what has been your biggest takeaway from your journey so far? My biggest takeaway from my journey so far, I think my biggest takeaway was, very good question. My biggest takeaway was that we have all the answers in ourselves. we're always looking for external answers. You know, when we're always looking, oh my God, we're following someone on social media, or we kind of following others, we kind of want to be like the other person. But actually we know the answer in ourselves already. The same is when we want to solve something in social entrepreneurship, when we want to work in a specific, let's say we want to focus on environmental aspects and SDGs, and locally maybe, and we kind of stuck, we don't know where to go. The answer is already inside you. It's just more like taking it out and get clarity. What is the first step? What is the next steps? How to approach people? Because often we have the answer, but we blocked. We either scared, or we have a lack of self-confidence. And that was the biggest learning also from the podcast and also the coaching now, is that we all have actually the answer in ourselves. We just need someone to unlock it and to gain new confidence and new energy. And once you have new energy and confidence from this step, you're moving forward with much more clarity and much more energy. Yeah.
Also, a lot of times we're always looking for validation, right? We may like within ourselves know this is what we want to do, but we just want like somebody else to kind of like say, yeah, or, you know, I don't know, I feel like I needed a lot more validation from others when I was younger. And, you know, with age and maybe with confidence and experience, I don't feel the need for validation from others as much as I mean, you always need, whether it's validation or encouragement, they're two different things, but maybe like you can talk a little about that also, Daniel.
And the encouragement, often we often, need that encouragement, kind of a voice behind us and saying, yes, you're on the right way. And this is important to keep. But I would also say maybe a voice who question you, but in a constructive way, constructive way. It's like bringing you into new thought processes, bringing you into thoughts of what you never have thought of. And I noticed that in coaching often, you know, the most powerful question in coaching is the moment when the other person is starting to think. Because that moment where silence takes place is when someone never has thought of and says afterwards, I have never thought of this. That's an interesting aspect. And that kind of, I feel, is also needed parallel from that validation. It's very important to get validation and support. And obviously also to remind, what have you done correct? What have you done right? I mean, obviously there is no right and wrong, but what have you done in a good way? But also look into what could you have done a little bit better next time as well, but not in a negative sense, but in a helpful way. Yeah, so this is what I would say to that.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions, or should we just wrap it up?
Hi, Daniel.
Yeah,
Hi.
well, I just want to say, Shoaib, is that a question, or are you wrapping up?
No, it's just a question and an
Oh, yeah,
observation.
sure.
I wanted to ask
Go
that.
ahead.
So basically, what you showed to us, it was completely different. But in India or in general in the world also, mostly the culture is of a motivational speaker or something, that kind of event. Even as you said that you also work with corporates and students and institutions, but the culture is very of a motivational, calling up some motivational speaker and have a session for an hour or two and just get done with that thing. But this coaching thing is very different, and for me it was the first time I'm hearing about such things. So how did you came up with this? Like, how do you differentiate this thing from a motivational speaker? Like, I just wanted to know that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, for me in the past, I often, luckily I not have attended so many motivational speakers, because this is usually when you know the industry, you know, some motivational speakers, they charge you a lot, have a 1, 2, 3 hours big event and everyone is super excited, but then afterwards nothing happens. And this is usually the case, that, you know, you go to these events or even online, and then there was a big speak, and then, yeah, you're motivated, and then nothing happens afterwards. They can help you afterwards, but go to the next session. And I'm usually not a big fan from this kind of events, because motivational speakers that just motivate you for short term, but not help you long term. And there was also not this one-on-one interaction. So for me, coaching is a really way to, obviously you can do group coaching, but the one-on-one is for me really to learn to give the other person the capability, the feeling that I'm listening, and I bring that person into the right thinking process. Because as I said before, the answer is really on that other person, deep inside them. And when you help the other person to unlock the answer, it's much more sustainable and much more helpful for the other person. And in the long run, it's much more efficient. And this is what I noticed when I did also the training with ICF, International Coaching Federation. Obviously, you can do that, as you said, with executive coaching. It's also taking place right now, the same as coaching, but also leadership coaching or motivational coaching. And this all comes down to really helping that other person with open-minded questions. And this coaching is really a difference than this motivational speeches, which only takes place 1 or 2 hours, big events, and don't really go into that individual one-on-one session. Because that is all about, someone who listens and help you step by step to think in the right direction. So you come up with your own answers. I hope I was able to answer that.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually to add to what Daniel said, so this concept of coaching, I would say that this is really like it's becoming more and more popular. It's not something very old. Okay, there was always coaching of some sort. I'm not saying that, but in terms of coaching for your personal growth and kind of balancing between your professional and personal goals, I think that has really like picked up over the last few years. Shoaib, like you're saying, it's something new for you. So I would say it is relatively new, but it is becoming more and more mainstream, whether you're, a young person or you're like really a CEO of a company. I know people in very, very senior positions, and they definitely have coaches these days. It's almost like these big corporations are actually like providing a coach to senior management, because it really helps. It really helps them with things that Daniel pointed out, right? You have answers within yourself, but a coach is able to kind of bring out, those things, bring out the best in you, and it's kind of there with you, right? In a way, at every like step of your journey. So I wanted to say that, and I think it's very interesting that Daniel, you're like the difference between motivational speaker versus coaching, because you have some experience working with, I think, like famous speakers when you were working with TED Talks, because that's what TED Talks is about, right? It's motivational speakers.
Yes, yeah. I mean, like that's where my real background. I mean, when I was living in London, I was working for TEDx East End in London, kind of east side of London, and then later for TEDx London for like 3 years, supported with finding the right speakers, and then was also behind the scene of supporting them with understanding like how can you make your speech persuasive, but also encouraging the audience, because in TED Talks they're very short, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So you need to come up with your personal story, and when you learn to summarize your personal story, maybe for a TED Talk, and you're learning how to get the learnings out of it, and the next step, that is in a nutshell, literally coaching. You learn to empower yourself and to give other people the confidence when you speak about your personal life, what you achieved, actually going back, what have you achieved, what have you learned, and what do you want to achieve in step 3. This is what I've done in the past in London as well, with some of them. this is a very interesting aspect. This comes down to storytelling, but when we're thinking about storytelling, it's actually a very powerful tool itself, because this is also, when it comes to autobiography coaching, it's also kind of a storytelling technique. Stories help us to learn, to get inspired, and to get motivated, to look back, and also to look in the future. And this is a very powerful technique, which I also used in TED Talks back at that time. And also for everyone to listen on the TED Talks as well. Because it's down to personal stories in TED Talks, which are very powerful.
Anything else? Anybody, any questions?
So
No?
sorry for joining late. Yeah, but so Daniel, tell me, like, how do you differentiate between the organization that I work with assigns PD coaches to its employees, right? Me included. So PD coaches basically professional development coaching for like growth in your career and whether your career goals align with your organizational goals and stuff like that. So how do you differentiate like coaching for life versus coaching for professional development, since like professional life takes up so much of our time, like almost like 10 to 12 hours a day? So how do you differentiate between coaching for life and coaching for professional development?
Yeah, it's good that you asked the question, because often people ask that question, like, how do you differentiate that professional life and or coaching for life? But actually, what I would say is there is not so much difference. Yes, from the clear theoretical aspect, obviously professional coaching is, looking into the KPI coaching when it comes to business leader coaching, for executive coaching. How do you communicate? How do you inspire other people? How are you looking into the business growth aspect? That is clear professional aspect. But when we're really looking down into organization, this is also what I notice now with coaching others, they're actually talking to people, and people work in organizations. And no matter what goals they have, KPIs, business goals, they have to make 10 sales per week or whatever, there's a person behind. And that person, if that person doesn't function or is not motivated, then the organizational goal, professional goal, will not be achieved. So when we want to support a professional goal, we actually have to support the person, both maybe on the stress level coaching, work-life balance coaching, also maybe when we're looking into no work and environments coaching. So when we help someone to be more clear on their vision and their goals, maybe on life, have a better understanding of work-life balance, we automatically or indirectly help the organization, because we may help the person to become more productive and more efficient, and help indirectly the organization. So coaching for life is really more understanding what makes you, in a nutshell, what makes you happy, independently from external goals. And if you help a person to realize that, to get more clarity, then indirectly you help also the organization, because the person is much more efficient at work. So I see both a little bit combined, not too far aside. It's really the question is, where are we stuck in on a personal side, or where do we stuck on a professional side? And often when I notice that now, when I reflect from the other coaching, when people say we stuck right now on the business side, we can't move forward, actually we stuck on a personal side. Maybe there's a lack of confidence, there's a lack of asking feedback, there's a lack of self-awareness, and maybe that comes down to that human level.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Yeah, that was really insightful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I know some of you joined late, Shahbaz in particular. Unfortunately, you missed most of it, but the good news is that we are recording it, and we will make the recording available. And also, I know we're kind of already out of time, and so I do want to end this session. And before ending, I want everyone to know that if you're interested in taking one-on-one sessions with Daniel, and I hope you are, We will be sending a link to register. I know you already registered, but just to make sure that you really do want to take sessions with Daniel, so that we make the best use of everyone's time, and we can schedule what is appropriate for you and Daniel. So we will send a link to the website, to this recording, as well as to register. And do join us on social media, check out our website. And with that, I will let Shoaib kind of take over to end this webinar.
Thanks a lot, Daniel, for this amazing session. It was really interesting and informative also, because as you rightly said, these days people are really very busy and we are not able to reflect and think what we have done in the past. So that's very important, as it was mentioned in one of your slides, like going to the past and planning the future. It was really important for all the students, social entrepreneur, and everyone. And I would thank all of the participants for joining this amazing session. And please join the next session, which will be held accordingly, and then it will let everyone know. Does anyone else want to add anything?
Just I also want to say thank you. Thanks a lot, Daniel. Greatly appreciate your time, and everyone who's joined as well.
Yeah, thank you so much as well. And it was really great speaking here as well. And looking forward, if some of you are interested, happy to just do a one-on-one session first, and then you can see, experience also like what is professional coaching, and then take it from there.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.